Good evening. Today I'm going to be reviewing a new release for 2021 from Pagani Design. This is the new PD-1662 GMT Roots Beer. This watch is available from Pagani Design Ali Global Store on AliExpress for €92. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So this is the familiar Pagani Design cardboard watch box that we've all seen before, and as one would expect, the watch sits on a piece of foam inside a foam cutout panel. Although basic, it does suffice in protecting the watch in shipping, and bearing in mind that this is a low tier price point piece at €92, I think it's perfectly acceptable. With regards to the other items, this is the plastic tag that comes with the watch. This is the microfiber polishing cloth, which is branded with Pagani Design. I always think it's a nice touch to get a microfiber polishing cloth with a watch. This is the guarantee card, and I'm pleased to report that the watch is covered by a 12-month international guarantee, which is very reassuring. And lastly, this is the owner's instruction manual. The user's manual is basic, but it does have diagrams, and the instructions are in English, and it details the operation of the automatic movement used in the piece. So a very useful read if you're unfamiliar with the Pearl DG5833 GMT movement. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is clearly an homage to the Rolex GMT Master 2 Roots Beer, and it does a very good job of that because it's very similar dimensions. 40mm case diameter, it has a 48mm lug-to-lug measurement, the thickness is 12.5mm, and it has a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the flip lock clasp. Now, as you can see, they have PVD plated the bracelet center links, also the bezel and also the crown to replicate the look of the Rolex GMT Master 2 root beer. And they've done a very good job of replicating the ever rose tone of the two-tone roll saw bracelet. So I think they deserve full credit for that. There are no imperfections to the PVD coating whatsoever. Absolutely flawless throughout. So very aesthetically pleasing because it has a two-tone ceramic bezel. The sapphire crystal doesn't have AR coating on the underside, but however it does have a 2.5 times magnification Cyclops magnifier, which is just like a Rolex. So it does do a good job. The other thing I like about it is they've gilded the hands and also the applied indices in a rose gold colour. So that really does replicate the root beer very well. Now, with regards to the rest of the specification, it's 151 grams with all the links in the oyster style bracelet, so it is a heavy piece, bearing in mind that it's a 40mm diameter. It has a screw down exhibition case back, as you can see, which is glazed with mineral crystal, and the exhibition case back is finished to perfection. I really like the finishing of the concentric brushed satin finish to the centre section, and the circumference has a contrasting mirror polishing. So Pagani Design really deserve credit because they do a very good job of producing exhibition case backs which are glazed with mineral crystal. The exhibition caseback provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 metres of water resistance, and as you can see, the Pearl DG5833 GMT movement is decorated with blued screws. There's a large blued screw for the rotor to the cannon pinion, and as you can see, they've also decorated the rotor. So although the movement itself is undecorated, they have made some effort to add blued screws and also a decorated rotor, which adds interest to it. Now, with regards to the plating, as I've discussed, it really is done very well to the centre links. As you can see, the PVD coating is plated throughout. There's no flaws in it whatsoever, even the underside of the solid end links, which are an excellent fit to the case. So very good quality finishing throughout. The flip lock clasp is well executed and mirror polish to the flanks, which contrasts with a brushed satin finish to the outer section. Mirror polish to the centre section, which is in a rose gold tone. And as I've discussed, the plating is just flawless throughout, very satisfying. Now, they've also improved the clasp in that it's tight. The hinge pins are a good tight fit in the interior. There's no glide lock mechanism, but then the GMT Master 2, which this is an homage to, doesn't have a glide lock either. That's only on the Submariner date. But what it does have is a copy of the Rolex EasyLink extension, which does add 5mm of extension to the end of the bracelet. So that's a good alternative to the glide lock. Personally, I would prefer to see a glide lock clasp, introduced to both the PD-1662 and also the PD-1661. But however, the EasyLink extension, which adds 5mm, is a credible alternative, and they have done a good job because there are 3 micro-adjust dimples on the interior of the clasp, so one can fine-tune the length of the bracelet to suit one's wrist. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, I've simply taken it out of the watch box and put it on wrist, and as you can see I'm pleased to report that it has no problems whatsoever fitting my 8-inch wrist. I can easily slide an index finger underneath the flip-lock clasp, so that means it will easily fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist. So 151 grams with all the links, but that will reduce significantly the more links you remove, and therefore make it a very comfortable piece to wear. So regardless of whether you are a collector with a 6 to 7-inch wrist or a larger 7 to 8-inch wrist respectively, you're going to find the 40mm case with a 20mm lug width balances very well. They've done a good job with the bracelet taper. It copies the Rolex GMT Master 2 root beer proportions. It tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the flip lock, and therefore it balances the 40mm head of the piece very well. So really the only negative is the lack of AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal. As you can see, the sapphire crystal is highly reflective and there is a lot of glare, and that's also compounded by the gilded hands and also the gilded applied indices, which are in a rose gold tone to match the rose gold bezel, centre links and also the crown. So the glare is a disappointment, and I really think they could improve it by adding AR coating, but however that would inevitably increase the price and therefore that would put some collectors off. So that's something to bear in mind. But with regards to the feel-good factor, the comfort and also the piece itself, it's very aesthetically pleasing and it really does do a good job of being an homage to the root beer. So let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to its absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to its absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. Pagani Design deserve full credit because they have improved the quality of the blue Luminova used. This is definitely glowing brighter, and it's also glowing for a longer length of time than previous versions of the PD-1662 GMT. I've previously reviewed the Batman version and also the Pepsi versions, and the Lume wasn't as bright as this and it wasn't glowing for this length of time. They've also improved the colour match between the Mercedes hands and also the applied indices. As you can see, the blue tone of Luminova is a closer match in terms of colour tone, and I'm really impressed with how it's continuing to glow. Yes, it's not as high performance as Swiss BGW9 Super Luminova as one would expect, but one has to bear in mind that this is a €92 piece. It's in the low tier. So there are going to be some cost-cutting measures, but as you can see, this blue Luminova is glowing brighter than previous versions of the PD-1662. So I think Pagani Design deserve full credit for that they have improved the quality of the Lume. And I like it. I think it's very good. So let's test the bezel action, because that's obviously another known fault with Pagani Design watches. Sometimes they get it right, and I've previously seen good quality bezel actions on the PD-1661, but on the other hand I've also seen very poor bezel actions. Now, I want to give due credit to Pagani Design because this is the latest 2021 release. This is a new model from Pagani Design. They really have tightened up the bezel action. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever. It's very tight. In terms of resistance through the 360 degrees of rotation, the ratcheting mechanism feels even and it also feels firm. It's got the same kind of firm resistance as a Steinhardt Ocean 139 if you're familiar with that, or alternatively a Seiko SKX 007. No backplay whatsoever. This is the best bezel action I have experienced on any Pagani Design watch. I would actually go so far as to say this is better bezel action than on the PD-1661 rubber strap version, which I recently reviewed, and that had excellent bezel action. Just no lateral side-to-side play whatsoever and no backplay. It's a 120 click unidirectional bezel. Now, strictly speaking, this is an homage to the GMT Master 2 root beer, and that has a bidirectional bezel. So really, to be the perfect homage to it, it should have a bidirectional bezel rather than being unidirectional like a dive bezel. But however, that is more costly to produce, and therefore one can forgive Pagani Design for cutting some production costs by using the same ratcheting mechanism as on the PD-1661, which is clearly an homage to the Submariner date. It has a unidirectional 120 click bezel. Now let's test the alignment. I'm just bringing up the triangle to the 12 o'clock index. Absolutely perfect alignment. No backplay whatsoever. This is a very tight bezel action. I really like it. So I'm absolutely delighted with that, because the bezel action and also the lume are two negatives of the PD-1662 GMT, and I'm pleased that Pagani Design have responded to criticism from collectors because they were the negatives. So let's see what the crown action's like, because it's something I like about Pagani Design watches, the well executed screw down crown. The crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters of water resistance. It's coin edge finished, and as you can see, it is signed with the Pagani Design emblem as one would expect. So silky smooth thread action, and it's got a nice pop when one unscrews it. One can manually wind it to top up the power reserve to the maximum 40 hours, and I'm just going to hack the movement, and as you can see, it's hacked correctly, and one can then rotate the GMT hour hand by rotating the hands around the dial. It has a quick set date complication to the movement, which is very good, and very silky smooth thread action. I'm actually very pleased. It feels very similar to the Seiko NH35A, which is used in the PD-1661, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So the Pearl DG5833 GMT does have a similar feeling to it when manually winding it to top up the power reserve, and I like it. The crown really is very well executed. They've done a good job of the execution of it, the finishing, the quality control is there. Now, with regards to the movement, the Pearl DG5833 GMT is manufactured in China by Guangzhou 5 Goat Watch Company Limited in Guangzhou, China, which is in Guangdong province. So it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse GMT movement. It has hand winding and hacking, and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. 40-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. It has 21 joules. Now, the negative of the Pearl DG5833 GMT is it is the luck of the draw whether one gets a good or bad one from the factory. If one gets a good one, they are a reliable, well-proven workhorse GMT movement, but however, if one gets a bad one, then they will quickly fail. Now, the stated accuracy is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so it has a wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that this one is well regulated to +12 seconds per day, which is perfectly acceptable and certainly within the -20 to +40 second per day stated accuracy. So this one, when fully wound to its maximum 40-hour power reserve, is running consistently at +12 seconds per day, which is good enough. So it's an okay movement. There are higher grades of movement, but of course they would inevitably incur higher production costs and push up the price from €92. So I think it is the correct choice. The Pearl DG5833 GMT is a well-proven GMT movement, but really it's a gamble whether one gets a good or bad one, so that's something to be mindful of. So, lastly, I'll surmise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the respective price point of this watch is €92. Yes, I consider it to be excellent quality, and yes, I consider it to be excellent value. The negative is the lack of AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal, but that really is it. Everything else about this watch is well done. Good quality control, flawless case finishing throughout, and really they've done an excellent job of the PVD coating. As you can see, the plating of the center links is absolutely flawless. Mirror polishing is flawless throughout, and also they've tightened up the clasp. No sharp edges on the corners or the flanks or the chamfers are all well done. Every aspect of it is improvements over the previous models of the PD-1662. So if you haven't seen my Pepsi or Batman PD-1662 GMT reviews, please feel free to check those out and contrast the quality and also the negatives with this piece. So most satisfying is the improvement in the blue Luminova, and also most satisfying the quality of the 120 click unidirectional bezel. They've tightened it up, no lateral side to side play and no back play. So this is an outstanding piece. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. One of the greatest Pagani design watches they have made. So I'm absolutely delighted they have made some improvements to their previous negatives, the poor quality lume and the poor execution of the bezel. I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. So I hope you've liked my review of the Pagani design PD-1662 GMT root beer. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.